Okay. So as we start on Mondays, we always start with tzedakah. So here we have our tzedakah right here. Always start with thinking of others, giving to help, keeping the others in mind, especially as we're learning how much the power of what Limud Torah is and how much it affects people in the world. We are doing this obviously of Paralei Abbas, Esther Sheva, Refuah Shlema, B'kar Mamish, complete health and strength, B'kar Mamish, it's just enough. It's just enough. I think that's a good enough explanation. And we should really see for everyone, we should see healing and strength. So obviously last week, I got quite a few comments at the end of the last class. Whoa, that was a heavy one. Whoa, that was a big one. Whoa, that was one I really, really needed to discuss and explore and unpack. Even I left feeling like that there was so much there. And I feel like so much of it, as much as we can say theoretically, there's still that inner resolve that we have to work through to really make peace with those very big ideas. And I would say the big ideas that we're talking about obviously are understanding that everything Hashem does is for the good, and that there's revealed good and there's concealed good, and how we should react to challenges and to struggles. And there's all the theoretical wonderful reality, but then there's living with that. It's like what we said last week is living what we believe, and that's a whole different, we can have a lot of great theories. It's like all these wonderful parenting theories, but then the kid is like nonstop harassing you, and you're like, out goes the book, out goes the theories, and in comes like my gut reaction. And so really we try to refine ourselves to get ourselves to that place. And I got such an interesting question, and I'm going to really just open up with that question. And the question really was about, okay, how is that also how I should react to someone else's troubles or tsaras? And it's so, because theoretically you'd say, okay, if I'm supposed to mikabel yisur ba'ava, like I should accept, like it says in Gemara, accept challenges with love and understand it's from Hashem and understand there's a greater purpose and all these wonderful theoretical stuff. How do I deal with that? What about someone else's pain? And I think we really need to make this very large disclaimer and a very large, like, kind of divide between my own mindset with my own struggles and my own mindset with remaining positive with my own struggles and, seeing them as opportunities or growth opportunities, whatever I want to look at them, or embracing that's part of the challenge that Hashem gave me. That's my perspective. But to look at someone else's tsaras or someone else's pain and be like, oh, it's so okay, like you're fine. You got this. Like, it's not a big deal. It's tsaras, it's fine. Hashem has a plan. Shkacha pratis, gamzul tova. No, like when it comes to someone else's, we are by nature, we should feel sympathy, empathy. We should feel towards the other person's pain in a very real, concrete way. If we don't, we have to check in with ourselves, because what's wrong with us? Like I'm so self-absorbed that I can't see someone else's reality. And I know that it went around very viral earlier this year, but Jonathan Sachs, I guess was in one of his last interviews, was asked, the age-old question, why do bad things happen to good people? And, whatever, the classic. I mean, we can't solve that one, right? And we're not the first people are going to ask that question, not the last that are going to ask that question. This is a big question. And I think he said, I think he said something so eloquent. And obviously I don't have the accent nor the wisdom nor Rabbi Sachs Shalom's, scholarship. But I think, to paraphrase him, he said that we're not supposed to understand, because if we understand, then our feelings are different. And if we understand, then we're not going to try to fix things for others. And I think that with someone else, there has to be, how can I help alleviate the pain, the burden, the struggle that you're carrying? For myself, I need to process, I need to zoom out, I need to remember Hashem has a plan. But we can never impose that on someone else or put that in as a filter. And I have to say, right after Rabbi Sachs had passed away, I got that question by a high school class. And I was at a high school for bringing Q&A. And so I answered with kind of what he said. And then I thought of an example, which is a little immature for us, but I think it's like a really good analogy. Like, let's say, you're going on a class trip. And again, please bear in mind that I think this will also help us frame it for those around us. And maybe we can personalize this. Let's say you're going on a class trip and one of your friends calls you and says, oh my goodness, my parents just told me I can't go. Everyone's going, the whole class, the whole school, whatever, Shabbaton, a trip, everyone's excited. you feel so bad for your friend. You're like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. How can we keep you included? Let's FaceTime you. I'm giving all the kids terminology and lingo. We'll snap you. We'll take pictures. We'll keep you posted. We'll FaceTime. We'll keep you, I don't want you to have FOMO. We want you included. You're going to try to solve your friend's deficit or loss. Now, what happens if you know the reason behind that is that really the parents are surprising her, I don't know, the trip to Florida the next morning. Orlando, Disney World. Okay, this is please excuse me because this was a really good high school analogy. But I think we could all translate it in our own life. What if you know that really it's a better reason? When your friend calls you, you will not be able to have that level of sympathy. You'll be like, oh, it's so not a big deal. You'll be fine. It's okay. Because you really know, that there's something bigger or better in store than a Shabbaton, right? You won't be able to emote and connect with where your friend's at. And I would like to say within ourselves, how we process our own challenges and struggles and how we process someone else's is similar. If we could say, oh, it's okay, Hashem's doing it for a reason, you're going to be fine, like it's not a big deal, you've got this challenge, we're not trying to help the person. But what we always have to look at someone else's pain with, how can I be part of the solution and alleviate that? And I think that that's a really, really huge line disclaimer that we have to put in when we're focusing on how to. No, we should cry to Hashem, why are you giving my friend pain or tsaris? Why are we still in galus? How is that even possible? We should bang our fists on the table, talk to the Eibishter, and we should protest. There's a lot of reason to protest what goes on in the world and the pain in the world. Our own relationship with our own struggles is very different than someone else's. So I just wanted to clarify that because that question did come up after class and I thought it was such a value. I kind of thought I sprinkled in the idea, but I obviously didn't clarify it. And I felt like that is so significant that we cannot move forward without clarifying that. So I hope that's clear. And if anyone still wants to follow up on that, feel free. My WhatsApp's available as per usual. Okay, so now we ended off last week with what if I feel stressed about my materialism, things that I don't have. So we said, okay, we have to understand that Hashem has a plan. We have to try to see what we can do to shift all the brachas in our life, etc. But then we said, what if we are plagued? I'm in the middle of davening or I'm in the middle of learning Torah and suddenly I'm feeling very, very guilty, or I'm feeling sadness. Really here we're dealing with sadness, or sadness over my deficiencies. Whether it's a thought that I'm having a negative thought when I shouldn't, I'm in the middle of davening, I'm talking to Hashem, or I'm learning Torah, and I'm distracted with stupidity, narishkeit, maybe even negative things like, oh, I should really go, I don't know. Okay, we're going to go with an extreme. Really should go to Red Lobster tonight, right? I don't think that's what we're struggling with. So we're going with that example for tonight because all of us can interpret that as we see fit. But it's definitely no place in davening. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person did that to that person at that event. Did you see what happened out there? And I'm davening, I'm talking to Hashem. So I could feel really where am I holding? What's wrong with me? Why am I thinking about Red Lobster or gossip or other people's behavior? And I could really be like, I can't believe I'm thinking that way. What's wrong with me? I'm inadequate. Spiritually, I can't measure up. Alter Rebbe says, whoa, put that on the side. You actually know that your davening and your limud Torah was accomplishing something tremendous because your nefesh elokis was shining at that moment. And that's exactly why your nefesh Bahamas is like, hey, wait, let me distract you. Whoa. There is way too much holiness going on here. Let me see how I can throw a curveball here. Let me think about how I'm mad at my child or my husband or my teacher or my boss or my mother or my mother-in-law, whatever, okay? Let me think of all the negativity at that time because there's something really spiritually powerful. And we know that one of the concepts of this is the more ruchnius, the more holy something is, the more the klipa tries to pull it down. It's a constant balance between kedusha and klipa. And at the end of the day, they each have their purpose and they each have their function, right? Kedusha's job is to make sure holiness reigns supreme. Klipa's job is no, too much holiness here, dial it back. Let's get, petty, mundane, negative, cranky. I always use the analogy of Friday. Friday is when the pipe is gonna burst, the chicken's gonna burn, the husband's gonna forget the dry cleaning, the child's gonna pour things all over why not on a Tuesday afternoon? Can't the child pour that all over the floor? Why on Friday, a half hour before Shabbos? And I always think to myself, and by the way, I don't know about you, and I'm scared to say because Pesach and Purim are coming, but always before the big Yom Tovim, the AC needs to go out, not chas v'shalom in the middle of the summer when you can figure out how to pay for it slow and steady. right before Rosh Hashanah, that's a perfect time for the AC system to go out. Your refrigerator right before Pesach, right? We all know, always like, I'm like, how do they know? How do my electronics know, right? When's the Jewish calendar? The Yom Tov move, how, right? It's pretty wild. But I really look at it, I try to zoom out, the chaos of Friday, the chaos before Yom Tov, and I try to understand that obviously I'm entering into such an oasis of Kedusha that Klippa has to be like, no, we are not going to allow this to happen. Not on my watch, right? He's like, no way, Erev Shabbos, I would rather this couple get into Shabbos with angry at each other, hostile, toxic, a little yelling and screaming would be perfect for the Friday vibe. And we have to be so cognizant of the fact that the more what we are going to do is Kedusha, the more Klippa is going to be like, hold up, let me see how I can mess up here. So I think that once we understand that that's a system in a world order, and we can own it a little bit more, and I realized I didn't highlight this last week, but I realized it's such a powerful takeaway. Kedusha, Shabbos is about oneness between us and the Eibishter. Oneness, a husband and wife. Oneness of a family. So literally, the Klippa needs you to be angry at your husband Erev Shabbos, right? So, okay, most of the time, by the way, if you think of what was the fight about Erev Pesach or Erev Shabbos, you don't even remember what it was, right? But boy, did you enter that day of Kedusha with like agitation, nerves, stress, right? So let's remember, this goes back to what the Alter Rebbe is telling us here. What's the Alter Rebbe telling us? Make an appointment to deal with it. Don't pretend like the dry cleaning didn't show up and the kid didn't throw things on the floor and the technology didn't break. Those happened. Don't forget that the thought in your head is still in your head. It's a reality. You're struggling, you're trying to learn, you're trying to daven, trying to say chitas. I cannot tell you how often I pick up a siddur to daven, and that's just when I'm needed by a phone call, by a person, by a thing. So yes, it's a challenge, but remember that it's because of what you're accomplishing beruchnius, that Klippa is like, hold up, let me see what I can do here. So the Alter is saying, when you have those negative thoughts, when your waves of depression or feeling bad about yourself, inadequacy, who are you, or negative thoughts of others at a holy time, it's because it's a holy time. Because your Nefesh Bahamas is like taking control. Remember, there's a constant battle. Whoever is stronger wins. Whichever is weaker, the weaker wrestler loses. And so because of that, there is that distinct energy pull in the other direction. So when the Alter says, when it comes to your own inadequacy, what you did, you feel bad about what you did, or you're worried about something that you know you're not meant to worry about. During davening, carve out sacred space, sacred time, cheshbon hanefesh. Carve out time to address it. And the way Shay's Tab once said it is, make an appointment with yourself and then you'll see who shows up. No one's showing up for the appointment, right? Because it's not really about solving that issue. It's about the negative energy, the toxicity. That's way more important than actually solving it and making progress. And that's where we kind of look at the interplay between atzvos, which is sadness and depression, and mariros, which is bitterness. Mariros means I feel horrible that that's how I acted. I cannot believe I did that to someone I love. How could I be so insensitive? That's real bitterness. Now, if that bitterness leads to I'm such a loser, I might as well stay home and stay in bed under my pillow, I'm never going to do a program again because maybe I'll hurt other people. Whoa, what just happened here? Right away, it's translating into negativity. So it's from a negative space, taking me down a negative journey. How do I know which emotion it is? If it motivates me and inspires me to do better and to self-reflect and to grow as a person, then I know it's healthy. Then it's verse, it's bitterness. I can feel bitter about something I do. I remember once one of my children, I think they were supposed to do something, weren't supposed to do something, whatever they did. Everyone did something, then they were going for Slurpees. And one kid didn't do it. And I said, as very calmly, by the way, just reminding you, if you don't get it done, then what do you think is going to happen? Oh, you're not going to go for Slurpees, right? Okay, cause and effect. Very simple. No emotion, no anger, no toxicity. Just, it's very like cause, effect. And I remember it came the time to everyone to go and the child didn't do it. And the child comes to me and says, what do you think? Do you think I can go? And I didn't want to answer the kid. I said, what do you think? And the child looked at me with tears pouring and said, I don't think I deserve it. I don't think I get to go. I said, I pulled the child in for a giant hug. And I said, you are so right. You're right. Basically, the child punished themselves, but it wasn't punishment. There was no negativity. It wasn't shame. It wasn't you're a loser. Well, now everyone gets to go and you don't get to go. Oh, well, tough on you. No, none of that. It was just like, you are so right. You're right. You didn't earn it. And I'm so proud of you that you understand cause and effect. And I'm sure next time you'll be able to go. Do you understand how that is productive? Negative. Bitterness is an emotion. We can't protect ourselves from bitter experiences. We can't protect others. The question is, where do I take it? To a place that motivates growth and progress as a person, or to a place that, well, wow, you're such a loser. I guess you could have done it. You had enough time to do it, right? That we all know how that sounds, right? We all know how that feels to hear. You had the time. I guess that was the choice you made. Oh, well, everyone's going to enjoy their service without you. And then the child looked at me and they said, do you think they could pick one up for me? And I said, well, what do you think? And the child said, I don't think I deserve it. And I said, I think you're right. And I'm so proud of you that you know when you earn things and when you don't. That's a teachable moment where you're empowering. This is the difference between sadness, depression. I could have turned it into a very depressive element for the child or for myself, right? But at the end of the day, we can teach ourselves and our children to look our weaknesses, our flaws, our inadequacies by carving out time and space to discuss it. We have so many conversations in our home with our kids about approaching not everyone's gonna have every mile, not everyone's gonna have every chisaron. What can we do about it? How can we progress? Not beat myself up. Okay, so I'm not so good at this. Hashem gave me other things I'm good at. Like, how do we improve and how do we work forward without levels of shame and other toxic emotions that attach to the experiences? Because the experience in and of itself is okay. It's what we do with it that kind of turns it into a place that immobilizes us, that leads to depression, poor self-esteem, et cetera, or where it motivates us to grow. And I think that's for ourselves, how we view our failures. And it's a little bit of a sidebar because I don't want to mention it here. I remember my husband and I in the summer, one of the perks of quarantining or whatever was going on with COVID, we started really learning every Shabbos morning together. And it's been an absolute treat for us. And I remember we were learning in Lakotei Torah, I don't remember which parsha, so please don't, if I have to research it, I will. But I remember learning, we ended up taking an incredible family discussion about this. It was about the word chisaron. And how do you approach chisaron? And the author is basically saying that the word chisaron means missing. It's coming from something that's missing. When we look at our flaws within ourselves, it's basically an unmet need. It's such a shift in how we look at a chisaron. Everyone's going to have them. That means we all have unmet needs. So if I see a chisaron within myself, if I find out what's the cause, what's the unmet need, I meet that need, or maybe I don't, I just acknowledge that it's a deficit and it's okay, then I can move forward. Then I could be healthy about it. I remember it led to a full day conversation with the older three. And I remember the younger three saying, oh, what's this conversation? Enough about it, enough chisaron, like they couldn't handle it anymore. But it was such a fascinating conversation to have with older kids. Like what's really, when you see someone's weakness, and I think what that's important to us to understand about ourselves and model it for those around us, because it also changes the way we see them. And when we see a chisaron as an unmet need, we don't get to this place of atzos, of depression, where I'm just a loser, why am I even here, We get to a place of, okay, this is something that I need to work on. This is kind of making space for that humanness. I don't know if that's the right word, but you understand what I'm saying. So really, regret is okay. Depression isn't. And I'm not talking about clinical depression. I said this last time. I want to make that disclaimer. Clinical depression, there is many reasons as women, with hormones, with chemicals, with brain function, with life experiences. And we talked about, and this is a disclaimer, I feel like anytime you mention the word depression, you have to say this. We need to get the help we have. There's no room for stigma. Like, we're so past that, like whatever. But I think that, but we can understand that Chassidus does have this perspective, when understood, can really enhance the way we go through life and the way we embrace and handle the challenges we have. So ultimately, regret's okay. I regret that I didn't do this. Well, if I have regret and it's healthy, then I won't do it again. If I'm ashamed about myself, who I am and what I did and what my failings are, what my flaws are, well, shame's not a healthy emotion. That's not going to help me. That's not going to help me progress and grow. And so we can feel guilty maybe about what we did, but what happens? Because then the author goes on to explain that there's a very fascinating cycle between shame, guilt, and actually redoing the sin. Okay, so it's this very vicious cycle where if I'm ashamed about myself or I feel guilty, guilt and shame is this very odd that it actually leads me to indulging in actually the behavior that I'm embarrassed or shameful of. So this pattern is very dangerous. And why is it dangerous? Because again, it doesn't help us progress. So this is when we're educating our children, or when we're talking to our inner child, or maybe my inner adult, or those around us that we love. Am I coming out of a place of shaming them? Am I shaming them into submission? We all know the teachers that taught us, or the mentors, or people who made a difference in our life, that thought they were going to shame us into submission or shame us into a right place, were those who said, you're better than that. You can do better. I know you. And I think it creates massive shifts. I remember I had a teacher when I was 14 who challenged me. Until then, I could not read until I was 9 years old. They didn't know why. They did all sorts of things. Thought I was dyslexic, dysgraphic, nothing. It was an internal eye focusing thing. They solved it. It took a year of vision training. By the time I'm 9, I already created a narrative in my head that I am not a smart person. I convinced myself because everyone else learned how to read aleph, beis, and colors and numbers and shapes and Hebrew and Yiddish, and I couldn't. And then by 9 or 10, by 10, I was finally starting to read. By 11, as I'm progressing, but I always was a weak reader because of that. And I remember one teacher challenged me to think differently. She looked at me and she said, at 14, she was a science teacher. She said, I think you think you're stupid. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize those were the thoughts or the story, the narrative that I had playing. But at the end of the day, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves or others, that narrative holds us in a place that doesn't allow us to progress. And she said, you know, you're not, right? You just didn't have a good foundation in certain things. That was it. It was like one sentence, but it pulled me to unpack those layers of that shame that ultimately was going to block me to the degree it blocked me. So I'm going to tell you that when I moved to College Station, the first time someone asked us to teach a class of Torah or Chassidus, I told you, see, not for me. I can't teach. It's for you. I'm not teaching. I was very comfortable in a preschool classroom. Adults teaching, never, not for me. And then you know what happens? I went to a workshop. Rivki Slonim was giving a workshop about Limud Torah and teaching Torah and making classes. And I was like, oh, I remember sitting there. I was like, I can't do this. She came to my table. She banged on the table. She's like, you can't do this. You can't do it. She was like, what's wrong with you? Like, why do you think you can't do this? I always tell her now, I'm like, Rivki, you're the one who pushed me. And that's it. You know, she's like, oh, halavai, you know. But the truth is that really, that's where shame takes us, holds us back. For me, I don't know if you realize this. For me, my teaching and learning Torah together with people is literally my highlight. It's my oxygen. It's my vitamin A, B, C, D, E. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, my supplement. I still take supplements, so don't worry. But it's my infusion for the week. And Baruch Hashem, I get a lot of opportunities. So now it's like the highlight for me. But I really believe that shame was holding me back from where my potential could have been and where, God willing, you know, what we're able to do. So we have to remember the place that these emotions have. One is productive, one is not. Now, the author goes on to say, okay, what if you feel ashamed that you have a certain desire? Let's go back to that Red Lobster example because it's a great abstract one. You just see the chicken McNuggets and the Red Lobster and you're like, I just need to have that Big Whopper. I don't know, okay? And you're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I struggling to go to pull into McDonald's? I don't know. This is not me. That's one example, kind of a silly one. What if I have a piece of gossip that is sitting there and I must share because it is so juicy and I know my friend is going to love the juiciness of that, right? And I'm struggling. I'm ashamed. What kind of person am I that I'm gossiping? What kind of person am I that I'm so excited to share that piece of gossip? and I'm struggling and I'm frustrated with the struggle. Why do I keep struggling with Red Lobster or with gossip or with losing it at my spouse and whatever it is that I'm struggling with? The Alter Rebbe says, whoa, 1 second. Remember, you're a Beinoni. Remember, this is the Avodah of a Beinoni. Remember, this is where you shine. This is why you're here. And the Alter Rebbe goes a layer further, which I think it's such a powerful shift that Chabad Chassidus creates. It's like, it's like really like, wow. The Alter Rebbe says, at that moment that you are struggling, you are fulfilling a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah in Devarim. It says, Loi sasuru achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem. Don't just go after whatever your eyes see or your heart lusts. When you are struggling and you're not, to the degree that Alter Rebbe says, Tzarech l'smayach b'kiyom halav k'may b'kiyom hamitzvah saseh mamish. That at that moment, when you are struggling, you are doing a kiyom of a lay saseh. You're not, the struggle is beautiful. And the sadness you're feeling with the fact that you're struggling is just because your ego is getting in the way. What, you think you're a tzaddik? You're not a tzaddik. You are a person who's struggling. There's beauty to the struggle. How often can we look at a child who's struggling and say, wow, there's beauty to the struggle? That's what to do. Which is like, just behave, just don't do things that are too stupid. You just like pray, say their kapitel tehillim. But can we help them understand that there's space for the struggle? You're struggling to tell the truth. You're right. It's really hard sometimes for people to be honest. Some people struggle with this. You know, Hashem is so proud that he knows you're struggling. This is a struggle Hashem gave you, but he also knows you can overcome it. You know, there's that very kind of well-known story where this man was about to get married or engaged to a non-Jewish woman. And his rabbi dragged him to the Rebbe. The father said, save my son. The Rebbe, with her shliach said, I can't say, I'm going to take him to the Rebbe. The Rebbe says to him, I'm jealous of you. He expected, old rabbi's going to tell about the Holocaust, the link in the chain, Abraham, Isaac, your children, your grandchildren. No, a Sefer Torah maybe, like something really dramatic. I'm jealous of you. You have a challenge that I never had. This is where this mindset and perspective comes from. This mindset and perspective of understanding and being able to say, there's so many discussions. I'm on a few different chats, what's up, a Kappas chat and this shluchas chat, and there's so many discussions about teenagers. And I think since probably since March, since quarantine, I've probably spoken to about 1,800 teenagers, at least, I think, girls, a lot. And I think they know they're almost like a burden. They know that people have no patience for them, and it bothers them because they don't want to be a burden. They're not looking to, but they're struggling. And you know why they're struggling? And one of the things I always, try when I'm speaking to mothers, I say, you have to give space to the struggle. It's a developmental stage they're in right now. They're supposed to struggle. But if we help them respect and understand the struggle and feel empowered, not shame, because shame never, ever is a motivator, right? If we can do that and we can help them understand this is how they can shine and how they can serve Hashem, it's a different ballgame. And that's for ourselves too. Think of something you're struggling to overcome. A midah, a character trait, a struggle, a chisaron, a mitzvah that you're, a halacha, a minhag, something you're struggling with. Every time you can make a drop in the right direction, like the beauty of struggle itself. And we all have all these metaphors. In order to strengthen a muscle, you have to, break it, and the butterfly has to struggle out of the cocoon, and the chick has to struggle. We have all these beautiful metaphors, but can we do it and live it in reality for ourselves and for those we love? It's harder. But you know what? When we look at our struggles that way, it's so much more empowering. And remember what we said in the beginning of this whole section, when we approach our challenges with power, with joy, with enthusiasm, we can do it. We have fuel to do it. We can overcome it. We can let the nefesh elokis be the stronger one in the wrestle. But when we're beaten and we're cowering and we're like, oh, nabach, poor me, who am I? I'm such a loser. I can't get it together. Every other mother can, every other wife can, every other this can. Then the shame, the negative narrative in our head holds us back. It's exactly what the Yitzhar is like. Perfect. Kalipa's like, perfect. Stay right there. Don't move. Don't move. Nope. No. Pause your phone. No. Don't read that self-help book. Don't listen to that podcast. Don't do anything that's going to make progress, right? So I think we have to remember, how can this change the way we view others and ourselves? That every single time we're struggling with halacha, a mitzvah, a minhag, a behavior, being the best version of ourselves as a daughter, wife, sister, mother, that's an opportunity to serve Hashem. And that's how I refine myself. And that's my mandate. That's why I'm here. I'm here to work on refining myself. I'm here to shift. Now, how do we do this? How do we do this? We do this by creating a paradigm shift, which we talked about. I mentioned it maybe twice, but we're going to focus on it here. If I see myself as a body that happens to have a neshama, it's a lot harder because then my body's like taking control, right? Did you ever hear from someone, oh my gosh, I'm going to faint. I didn't daven mincha. You don't hear that from anyone. But I'm going to faint. I didn't eat breakfast or lunch. That we have no problem saying because our body it makes more noise. Got to get to know our neshama, right? Do I look at davening as like, oh, it's a burden and an obligation, and maybe Hashem will, whatever. I need some things for Hashem, or I feel guilty if I don't daven, or whoa, self-care, my neshama, I need to nourish, I need to plug in, I need to connect. One is a body perspective, which I think we could relate to. Oh my gosh, I'm chalishing for that piece of cake. We say that. We don't say I'm chalishing to learn a sikha. Unless you do, and if you do, like, that's awesome. That's really cool. I want to hang out with you. But you understand, we understand the body is like makes its noise. It's making it's asserting its power where it is. And the neshama we need to nurture. We need to understand and focus on that. When we nourish the neshama, what's the nourishment for the neshama? We talked about this before, Torah mitzvahs. When we allow that neshama to overcome the struggle and come out on the right side, right? That's the whole avodah v'beinani, struggling and coming out on the right side, that the machshava, dibur, and ma'aseh is aligned with Hashem, aligned with Torah mitzvahs, aligned with our potential, aligned with who we can be and how we can maximize who we are. When I do that, that in essence, I'm allowing my neshama to shine with why it's here. And the Alter Rebbe gives a beautiful mashal. Prince is sent out to go out with the commoners, I think he uses the analogy of grinding at a mill. Comes back, doesn't look like a prince, worn, torn, difficult struggle, but comes back to the palace. When he comes back to the palace, he's home. He's at the palace. He's back to his noble place. So our neshama is right here in this world, grinding whatever. We grinding a mill, and we call it shopping, cooking, cleaning, dealing with the everyday grind, bills, insurance, chaos, schools, I don't know, whatever life, like doctor's appointments, life throws stuff at us, right? We all know. The day-to-day grind is my neshama out there in the mill. When I learn Torah or do a mitzvah, I'm allowing my neshama to come back to the palace. It's not staying in the palace. It's a short visit. Go back to the mill, right? Go back to the mill. There's more work to do. But those moments where we savor, we're giving our neshama such a gift when we understand it. So every mitzvah is that prince coming back home. Every mitzvah is our neshama being nurtured. Learning together, this hour we spend together, we're literally nurturing and nourishing our neshama. What a gift. And can we look at mitzvahs that way? Can we help our children see mitzvahs that way? Can we help those around us see mitzvahs that way? Mitzvahs, halachas, minhagim, all the things that we struggle with, midas that we're refining, the struggles that we have. These are good goals. There's a reason we keep learning Tanya every year, because we have to refresh these goals all the time. We gotta, remember, because we may be inspired today, and then tomorrow we're back to the grind and we're back, throwing mud at the mill. You know what I'm saying? We forgot about the palace. We didn't remember we're a prince. We're so busy with the grinding. So we have to keep learning. We have to keep connected. We have to keep nourishing. So when we see ourselves primarily as a neshama that happens to be in a guf, then When we see ourselves in a neshama that happens to be in a guf, that's different. Will there mean there'll be a course next year? We'll talk. To be continued. Let's get through 8 weeks, ladies. Let's just learn and savor what we have. And there's always more opportunities to learn Torah together. Learn this together. There's definitely nothing like it. So now the Alter Rebbe is going to shift and say, okay, if you got that, and you can understand that really your identity is a neshama, how could that apply to how you see others? How could that apply to how you see others? See, all these chapters were about accomplishing inner joy in a real way. Dealing with guilt, dealing with shame, dealing with bitterness, dealing with sadness, dealing with feelings of inadequacy, dealing with challenges and struggles that throw us off our game. Now, this section, Perek Lamed Beis, seems to be like, what are you doing here? Wait, what does this have to do with my own personal joy? Of course, we know. Lamed Beis, the Perek that deals with how we see others, deals with how we struggle with the nudnik over here, the nudnik over there, that drives us crazy. Life. People can be annoying. When my kids say to me, oh, this kid's so nice. You're right. People are annoying. My siblings don't know. You're right. Hashem knows you're going to meet nudniks in life, so he's giving you an opportunity to learn how to handle, how to stay calm, how to work through the situation. Yeah, it's not a mistake they have an annoying brother or sister. It's okay. It's part of it. I'm not going to deny your sibling's not annoying. They're being annoying right now. That's okay. And there are probably times that you annoy them. That's also part of it. You learn how to annoy, how to not annoy, how to accommodate, how to back off. These are skills. Hashem's giving you a wonderful laboratory of life. Because I'm not going to pretend the child's not annoying. When they're annoying, they know they're being annoying. When they're siblings, they know they're annoying. Their siblings, they know. Like, we can't pretend it's not a reality in our family. I think in our house is like, we don't do very well with pretend. Like, it's on the table. Like, let's call a spade a spade. It's like I said to someone once, heard me tell my child, I was like, what you're doing right now is really annoying, and I would prefer you didn't do it in this room if you'd like. And they said, you just told your child they're annoying. It's going to affect their self-esteem. I said, no, it's real. If I pretended that they weren't being annoying, that's probably worse for their self-esteem. Let the kid know, like right now, you're not respecting the space. There's 10 people here that are enjoying themselves. You decided you need to, so go to your room and do that. That's, again, it's not mean. It's not vindictive. It's true. So why am I sharing this? The Alter Rebbe in Perek Lamed Beis shifts to understanding that if we use this method of understanding that we're neshamas, godly, holy, divine souls that happen to be in bodies, then really, my friend, my neighbor, my nudnik, whatever, coworker, boss, they're also neshamas that happen to be in bodies. And so the body, the world, the struggles, the physical reality of life, that's hard. That's a struggle. But in order for, if you can try to use the method of shifting to a soul perspective to attain inner harmony, then you can use these tools to attain harmony between you and someone else. And I think I mentioned this in the past, but I have a very dear friend, one of our students from, I think 2010. So it was a while ago. We're still really close. And she was a president of a conservative temple. And she once said to me, she said, Tanya, how? Like, what's your guy's secret? Like, how do you see these students? They come in, they don't appreciate, they eat, they clean out the closets, they don't clean up after themselves. They're not like secular cultures are not notorious for like their like sensitivity and fine manners. It's just not the age. Like keggers, yes. Wonderful parties, yes. Being a lot of fun and good energy, absolutely yes. But like coming in and eating everything out of the fridge, also yes, right? So it's okay. Baruch Hashem, like this is this time, this space. And she's like, I don't get it. How do you, this kid walks in with tattoos. This one walks in with piercings. Why, how do you guys do it? And I said, let's learn Tanya. You'll understand. We did learn Tanya for a year together. And I think since then, she's so close. She's, I actually, one time I flew to New York, I flew a day early just to teach her some shpacha. She's like a soul sister. I think we'll be friends for, a very long time, God willing, right? What was it? She was involved in organized jewelry. I don't know, I have a different term for it, but she was involved in all this, like temple life. And she just looked at it as this obviously, like, where do you have it from? How does it happen? But I think I know our Rebbe role modeled that. How to see another Yid. How to see, the way the Rebbe looked at the hippies in the 60s, where everyone was like, oh, the world is coming to an end, the next generation. There was a no. They're dissatisfied with status quo. How many Baalei Teshuva came from that movement, right? So the perspective that we can see things through, see the neshama, don't see the layers. Don't see the behaviors. They teach you this about kids also. Always the behavior, the loudest, most annoying child in the classroom needs the most love. They're crying out the most. They're saying, my soul, my neshama, my essence, help me. They're waving the biggest flag. Okay, their way of notifying us isn't so polite, so wonderful. We all understand what that could feel like. Even a coworker who acts that way, there's something there. So can we look beyond the behavior and see the bond, the neshama? Because at the end of the day, the Alter Rebbe says we're achim mamish. We're literally brothers. We're one. We're on a neshama level. Our neshama comes from the same place. And I think that when we could teach our kids this, we can even really empower them. I remember one of my children, this was a while ago, came back from 10-day winter camp. And it came out, this very strong, empowered kid was bullied by two kids. And I remember, I remember having a conversation with the child. First, okay, I did call the camp and I did notify them this happened. They should know, they should be aware. But I remember there were two messages that came up across in the conversation. It's not a mistake this happened to you. Hashem really gave you an opportunity. Obviously with sympathy. Obviously sympathy's first. Hashem gave you an opportunity to understand what it feels like to be bullied. It means you will never bully someone again. You will never let someone else be bullied in front of you again. It's not random. It's not a mistake, because when we think random, a mistake, then the child feels like a victim. And you know what? Victimhood is not empowering. But can I empower the child to see this negative, challenging experience? Yes, with sympathy, and yes, with love, and yes, with validation, all that. But can I empower the children? I'm going to call the camp. I'm going to call those mothers. I'm going to. No, it's not a mistake. Hashem knew this needed to happen to you. And it's okay. And you know what? I find that this mindset of teaching our children that everyone's a human being, and I know my mother did a really good job. She has running out in the dead of winter in New York with hot cocoa for the garbage men. And she said, always remember, he's a father, a brother, a father, a brother, and a son to someone. My mother always knew the fishmonger's name, the guy in the vegetable store's name, always by first name, because she always taught us every human being is here for a reason. And, there was a beautiful, fascinating little, story. It's one of the gem stories. I'm sure you've seen it, but it's this young man, 1960s, leaves yeshiva, leaves Yiddishkeit, is, touring with the Rolling Stones. Someone's talking about Buddhism. He has his service. He ends up somehow, someone says, can't help you. Go to the Rebbe, goes to the Rebbe, and he stands in front of 770, says, with his leather boots and his long hair and his leather jacket. And he says, are you the Lubavitcher Rebbe? He says, yeah. He says, where is God? Right? He starts, and basically he says, the Rebbe said in the Stones, and he said, but where? And the Rebbe said, the way you're asking, right in your heart. And he said, it didn't change that. And the Rebbe said, put on tefillin. Basically put on tefillin, And he said, it didn't change right then, that day, that week, that month. But within 2 months, he started putting on tefillin daily. Having someone not look at him with judgment, not look at him, but looking beneath the surface at that beautiful neshama that was struggling, that was looking for a relationship with the Eibishter, that obviously had reasons. He says, I'm married for, many decades. He says, since that 2 months later, this is 1973. He said he never stopped, putting on tefillin. I have 4 from children. I'm living a beautiful, and he got emotional as he's talking about the way the Rebbe looked at him, the way the focus on him. The Rebbe didn't say, what's wrong with you? Get out of here. Never. Always with that deep, there's a neshama. So this is the mindset and the perspective we could live with when we see others, even our spouses and children. They also have a neshama, right? My mother used to say, treat your siblings like total strangers. Don't treat them like your siblings. Treat them like a stranger down the block. But it's true, right? The famous joke, the Jew says, I love all Jews. Oh, really? What about your brother? My brother, I don't talk to him, that guy, that this, that. What about my doctor, that swindler, right? And the anti-Semites like, oh, I hate Jews. But what about your lawyer? Oh, my lawyer is a good guy, right? We have a problem. We have a problem. But the problem is because of that connection and that bond, which is why it's sometimes the easiest to fight with families, our family, because there's that deep bond. But let's look at everyone, ourselves, our children, our husbands, our spouses, our community. Can we build? Can we connect? We're literally achim mamish, and that's a huge perspective. And I know we're running towards the end of our time, and I want to have time for questions and thoughts, but there's one more in order to kind of finish the section, because it's such a loaded section. There's like so much here. I feel like we're like barely doing it justice because there's so much more to unpack, but hopefully there's enough to like pull and everyone can hopefully personalize it in their own way. But I think that I would love to finish the last like two concepts, and then I'll stay later if we need to, so that's fine. So what is then the Alter Rebbe go on to say? So the Alter Rebbe goes on after he discusses how we really have to see not only ourselves as a neshama that happens to be a body, but see others as that way, and that we're literally, we're parts of one body. When you cut your pinky's bothering you, you're not going to cut off your pinky because it's annoying, right? It's your pinky. It's a part of you. Same thing with those around us, Am Yisrael, etc. And then the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain, and this is kind of like shifting towards the end of that like simcha section, right, in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe is going to say, what gives us simcha amiti, a real inner joy? And what's fascinating to see is we're now in Perek Lamed Gimel. In Perek Lamed Gimel, there's so many of us know the 12 psukim, right? The 12 psukim were Torah passages that the Rebbe instituted that every single child should know rolling off their tongue. From Tanakh, they're from Chumash, they're from Torah, right? 3 out of 12 come from Tanya. One, we said in the beginning, Kikari Velacha. Every child knows it. Hopefully, every adult knows it, right? The whole basis of Tanya is that it's close to you. Thoughts, speech, and actions. It's very close. But then we're going to see that 2 more of the psukim that the Rebbe shows as fundamental building blocks in the mindset, and this is one we could do next, the 12 psukim, because they're so amazing. You just like unpack them, they're like unbelievable. Anyway, okay, they're so fundamental. They really encompass the building blocks of chassidus, like of who we are. It's just amazing. So 2 out of 12 are actually in this parak. And in this parak, we're kind of transitioning and we're understanding basically why we're here. What is it we're doing here? And you can look, there are books, there are podcasts, there are no shortage of the humans searching for what's my meaning in life. It's like the existential age-old question. Why am I here? Am I a carbon footprint? In some campuses that are very eco-conscious, should we not be here? Am I just taking up oxygen? Am I just floating through space? What's my purpose? And actually, that stirring of the consciousness and that stirring of the inner quest to know why I'm here has led so many students to our Chabad house, right? Because they don't know why they're here and the world doesn't have a rational answer. And then I challenge them. I say, well, I'll ask you a bigger question. Why are Jews here in 2021? Like, why do we even exist? We shouldn't exist. Like, what's the point of our existence? Why did God decide that we need to still exist, right? But really in this section of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that there should be a deep inner joy, Yismach Yisrael and V'zeh Kol Adam, 2 of the very famous psukim, that this is the whole reason the world exists. This is the whole reason you exist. What is it? Basically, to overcome the natural world that we live in and create a unity and fusion between the upper world and the lower world. To create a Dira B'Tachteinim, to create space for the Eibishter. And really, if we can try to get beyond our natural, like at the end of the day, we're so bombarded with nature, with the world, with mundane. Can we get beyond it to contemplate what this oneness is? Can we? Can we really let go? And deep inner joy comes from understanding that I'm a conduit for light and godliness in this world. Complete letting go. And I remember actually when I was expecting the triplets, I think it was one of the most physically and emotionally challenging things. Triplet pregnancy is quite the journey, I will say that. And I apologize for those I scared when I just told them there was definitely not 2 in there. So those of you who I scared, I hope you forgive me. I see some nodding, so you know. I knew there wasn't 2. I wasn't lying. But physically, it was so taxing on my body. Like physically, my mechanisms were overheating. It was physically the capacity on all fronts, and emotionally complete letting go. Because when, where, how, the risk factors, the mindset, clearing your mind of the statistics and the risks, tremendous. But the biggest avodah for me was truly learning to let go and let Hashem steer the ship, and recognizing I was just a conduit to bring these neshamas into the world. Like my entire existence had to be consumed with letting go of every expectation that was self-imposed, every standard that was self-imposed. Cereal milk is a great breakfast, lunch, and dinner. How I operated, which was self-imposed, all these things in the physical world that limited me. And I was just literally a vehicle, a vessel, or more like a beached whale, but whatever, to bring, just being honest. I remember there were days where I like sat and ate and slept and davened, and I couldn't even make a phone call because I didn't even have the energy. Now, for those of you who know me, I like to get things done. I have a lot of energy. It's actually more comfortable for me to be in go mode than in chill at home mode. I don't do chill at home very well. I've learned it. I'm learning it. Maybe that was part of my avodah, learning how to let go and just be instead of do. But it was a real avodah. But from it comes such a deep level of joy of really aligning and understanding why Hashem put us where he put us, whatever situation he put us in. And then Alter goes on to further to explain that this letting go and really being a conduit for Kedusha and holiness in Hashem gives simcha. It's amazing. Kaf, like double and triple simcha. That's not, again, not a euphemism, not just drama, but basically, if we allow that Hashem has joy, double and triple joy. Hashem has double and triple joy. When we allow light to emerge from the darkness, and that's a quote from Tanya. That means we are in a dark situation or a challenging situation, but we can find light in it and let go and understand that this is what Hashem wants. That literally gives Hashem double and triple joy. That's like, whoa, I can allow Hashem to flow through me, that I can be a conduit to reveal godly light. Hashem created this world with concealment. We talked about this 3 classes ago, intentionally concealing his presence. But Hashem desired a relationship with us struggling, flailing, out on a limb humans who can't always get it together, or I should say, rarely get it together, right? And if one area is together, the other part's not. We all know, right? If this part of the house is clean, because that's where my Zoom camera is, chances are that part may not be clean, right? So we may have this part together in my life. Maybe my work life's together, but my home life's not. Or this child's fine, but that child's not. Or my marriage is struggling now, but there's always layers. But if I can realize that in that darkness, I can shine light and allow Hashem to be revealed through me by living higher, by doing better, by connecting deeper, I can be a conduit for light. And we know this. This is one of the terms that Chassidus teaches us. A Chassid is a lamplighter. A Chassid not just lives light, but brings light to others. That is like, I can literally bring the Eibishter's light into the world in such a real way. And it's in the little things. It's not always in the big. It's in I was just asked to do something for an organization, and I don't know, my ego would bother me. I didn't like the way they asked it. So I was like, my intuition was no. So I said, I have to, instead of saying no, I said, let me think about it. And then I ran it by someone. She says, hey, you don't have to do it. Are you crazy? And I said, I want to ask, I said, I need to check in with myself. I didn't say it verbally, but I thought to myself, I need to check in with myself. What's preventing me from doing it? It's not that I don't believe in what they're asking. And it's not that I don't believe that I could do it. It's not even that it's going to take that much effort. The only thing that was blocking me was my ego. Well, if the only thing that blocking me was my ego, bye, ego. You're not winning this one. And I actually called the lady back. I said yes. And the person says, you said yes, you're great. I said no, because I realized, not because I realized the only thing that was blocking me was ego. And I think that those are the little moments where we put we push one thing aside and we say, okay, no, that's not going to win. Because so many times when we're angry, we're sad, or we're not the best version of ourselves, it's our ego blocking. right? So this is how we shine. This is how we can bring it. And the Alter Rebbe explains it. That basically, at the end of the day, right now, the Eibusher wanted to do b'tachteinim. For years, the Avos and Imahis, operated in a very high level, brought Kedusha into the world. We had a Beis HaMikdash, Kedusha was there. We had a Mishkan, Kedusha was there. Shechina was there. There's no Beis HaMikdash. Where is the light going to shine? Us. We are. Our homes. We're Mikdash Ma'at. We have the opportunity to allow Hashem, and when we realize that we can make Hashem a host in this world by the little triumphs and the big ones, the little actions and the big ones, there's so much deep inner joy in knowing we are doing what we're here for. And it's why, when we do good, we feel good. When I see a child struggle and I say, I see you're struggling with it, but I know you could work through it, and the child does, and I said, I know that was hard for you, but don't you feel so happy that you were able to overcome that? Don't you feel such deep sense of joy knowing, like there's a self-satisfaction when I know I can be a host for Hashem. I know I can do incredible things. And the Alter Rebbe is going to end with 2 more points in this section. How do I do that day to day as I'm struggling? 1, learn Torah. There's no doubt that the more we learn, the more we're plugged in, the more we're connected, the more we're aligned. Torah is nitzchias, it's eternal, its wisdom is eternal, it's meant to help us stay aligned and healthy and centered and grounded, or whatever other buzzwords you want to use. Maximize your potential, live your best life, whatever you want to, whatever slogan works for you or hashtag works for you. It's eternal truth that helps us function. And the more we learn, the more we're connected, the more we're anchored, the more we're plugged in. That's 1. And the Alter Rebbe says, and then when you're going about your day-to-day business, you can allow Hashem to work through you when you give tzedakah. And it's such an interesting thing to see when I introduce in one of my classes the concept of tzedakah to students. Unfortunately, to many, it's very foreign. Even though Jews are known notoriously for our giving, and I think in 2018, huge amount, a huge amount of percentage of world philanthropy was Jewish. And it's, the value is a little bit like, when I have a house and when I have a car and when I have a thing and when I have a diamond ring, and I try to treat my students, no, when you have $1 from the, my kids, when you have $1 from the tooth fairy, how much is 10% of $1, right? They want to know. When you have Hanukkah gelt, when you earn money from Bubby, when we elevate, and then we'll talk more about this a little bit more next week, so this is a little bit of teaser, is we understand that we're here to create a dir v'tachserim to make Hashem comfortable in the world. We understand that it's an active job for all of us. We understand that that fulfilling that role leads to an inner satisfaction that's deep and real. And for next week, we'll discuss, so if that's the case, what's the purpose of the ongoing struggle? How can I override it? What can I do day to day? That's for next week. So we always got to leave on a cliffhanger. So ladies, I know today there was a lot. I was so keenly aware of the fact, feel free to unmute yourself and jump in on this conversation. I knew that there was a lot about ourselves and inner joy and how we see others and how we see our failures and how we accept and make space for the struggle. And we're trying to cram a lot of ideas into a very short amount of time. But I truly hope that everyone can walk away feeling a level of like, I could pull that into my life. And maybe once this week we could think, well, how could I look at that on a Shema level, not from my goof, not from my ego, not from my ground itself, center itself. And how can I truly work on, the negative thought patterns that are in my head and understand, are they going to motivate me to grow or motivate me to, or hold me back? Or how can maybe there's a negative energy in my home and how can I work on that? So there's a lot here. I'm aware of it, but anyone want to unmute and share any thoughts or ideas or reflections or maybe something that's like, oh, that's interesting.
Manya, I have a question.
Oh, great.
Regarding what you were saying specifically with being distracted during davening or tehillim, I missed the point, or is it can we make it better, or what are we supposed to learn?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Okay. Good point. Thank you. Actually, there's a Hayom that talks about this, that when you give energy, like if you stop during davening, you're like, oh my gosh, cannot believe I'm thinking about this gossip during davening. I'm such a loser. I'm talking to Hashem. It's so important. It's Yom Kippur, it's Rosh Hashanah, it's Shachris. I need help. I need Hashem in my life. What's wrong with me? Then what you actually did is you just took so much more time from your davening and energy from your davening and focused on negativity. Again, perfect place. Exactly like Nefesh Bahamas wants you. Exactly. Like pegged right there. Stay. Don't move. Klippa's like, perfect. Don't move. You're distracted. You're not thinking about Hashem. You're thinking about what a miserable human being you are, right? So at that moment, the Alter says, acknowledge the emotion. Validate the thought. I hear you. I hear you. Okay. We'll deal with it. By the way, often I feel like this tool is so valuable. Acknowledge the thought, the emotion, the feeling. When we ignore thoughts, emotions, and feelings, it's not healthy. When we go down the rabbit hole of thoughts, feelings, and emotions, it's also not healthy. We go to extreme. We vacillate to extremes. Either we ignore them or we suppress the feelings and emotions that are toxic or negative, and we pretend they don't there. And well, we all know that what that does creates a lot of passive aggressive behavior, a lot of defensive behavior, a lot of, let's say you're hurt or insulted or, whatever. You can harbor, fester, manifest, spend a lot of energy, toxicity on that situation. You can acknowledge it happened, make a time to deal with that. Wow, it really bothered me when my sister-in-law said that to me. Okay, thank God I have wonderful sisters-in-law. This is a disclaimer, so it's none of them. It really bothered them when they really hurt me. That was so embarrassing. I got to deal with it. I'm going to talk to them. That's productive. Or how could they? What's wrong with them? And I pick up the other sister-in-law and I call the mother-in-law and I call my husband and I whine and I fetch and I feel sorry for myself. Then I'm stuck. So this is the example given with davening. When davening, you say, okay, the machshava zara, the thought came into my head at this moment and it doesn't belong here now. Bye-bye. You don't belong here now. I'm not giving you time, energy, effort right now. I'll deal with it. Tomorrow I'll deal with that thought that popped into my head. Tomorrow I'll make an appointment and deal with it. When I'm intentional, when I'm conscious, when I'm focused on solving the issue instead of just wallowing in where I'm at. You see the difference, Joycey? Make sense? One is productive, one gets me stuck in the mud or down the rabbit hole. And we've all been there. I think as women, we're very good about going in down the rabbit hole. Like the rabbit holes are very, like we joke in our house sometimes. We say the pity party is it's a very comfortable place, but it's lonely because the only person that's there is you. You're the only person who's showing up at the pity party, right? Like no one else is partying with you at that pity party. Like you're just feeling sorry for yourself, poor me, So same thing with feelings of doubts or shame. And you know what the Alter Bathing says? Like, did that thought enter your head when you're in the middle of an exciting business deal or at a restaurant with friends? No. That's how you know where it's coming from. That's how you know it doesn't belong there right now. And the only reason why it's there while you're davening or learning Torah is because why? To distract your nefesh, because your nefesh halakis is doing too well. Doing a little too much good. It's too plugged in. The nefesh Bahamas is not comfortable with that. So it has to throw a monkey wrench in and hope you buy it. Hope you go down that rabbit hole. Does that make sense? Okay. It's a good one. I think it translates also into other things. Like you have a feeling, don't suppress the feeling, but don't allow that feeling to dominate your whole day, week, month, year, life. Feelings are real. They're on the spectrum of the human experiences. They're all valid. Make space for them, but don't allow them to control you. Do you control them or they control you?
So Manya, is every person in your world meant for them, to be there, that you need to do something? What if someone who's close to you is extremely toxic to you?
I think this is a great question. I deal with this a lot with students. Many are unfortunately not coming from the most wholesome, healthy home environments. Let's go with that. And toxicity it's toxic. We all know what toxicity is. Immobilizing. It can knock you down. It can keep you down. I think that we believe according to Chassidus that every single person we meet for a reason. Sometimes that reason is to say, this is toxic and I need to learn how to stand up for myself. Sometimes it needs to say, I'm not going to put a brick wall between me and that person because that's just running, but I'm going to put a chain link fence and I'm going to hold the keys. Sometimes it means I have to learn there's always some teachable moment. There's something to learn. And sometimes you can't control, I mean, not sometimes, you never can control the other person.
But if you genuinely love that person, and you can't fix it.
No.
You can't fix the person.
We can't fix people.
Right.
This is age old. But I think that there has to be mechanisms that we can put in place to empower ourselves, that then sometimes it's like, you know, you're walking in a park and someone who's clearly lost it is telling you, you know, oh, you're a loser. You're gonna be like, okay, whatever, they lost it. I think if we can look beyond, and actually, by the way, the book Positivity Bias, I think gives a lot of really valuable examples of how to look beyond the behavior of the person and see things differently. Because if you can see that person's behavior as a chisaron, that they have an unmet need, and you're not going to meet that need. And it doesn't mean you allow, I don't think we become shmatas or carpets or rugs or allow ourselves to be abused emotionally, or, you know, someone to control us toxically. I really don't believe that. There have been people I distanced myself from because I realized it was just an unhealthy relationship that brought too much negativity into my life. I didn't say you're a loser and I'm, you know, not going to stay connected to you. I just casually, you know, steered things in a different direction, or, you know, really was conscious of what it was doing to me, how I was feeling. But you don't change, we don't change others. Like this is why, by the way, in chinuch, we have to empower them from inside out. Really, we believe Chassidus teaches us pnimius to chitzonius, inside out. So we have to also give our kids those tools inside out. So I would say for someone, obviously every situation is a little different, and that's why we have mashpia, you know, like the Rebbe talked about, we should have someone that we can bounce this particulars, you know, off of. And I know for some students, their toxicity is affecting them physically, and I have them sit with a therapist to work through how to create healthy boundaries and how to love the person and not love the action, separate the person from the action, how to see the person's behavior differently, how to learn how to stand up for themselves. I think these are all skills that we can learn from the experience. And sometimes we do have to say this relationship is not healthy or good. I do think we have to sometimes make that distinction, but if it's someone we're not going to sever our relationship with because you know, it's a family member or someone that's inevitable relationship, then we have to learn how to strengthen ourselves. But there is always something we can learn from it. You know, they describe it as a dance, right? Like I do this and the person does this. And the only way to change the dance, you can't change the other person's dance moves, but you change your dance move. And then I'm not in that dance anymore. I'm not in that cycle anymore. So I think that if I can see the good in the person, I can understand that where that flaw is coming from, I could look beyond it, but I also at the same time simultaneously have to empower myself with the skills and tools so I'm not dragged down, so I can maximize my potential. I could still have simchas chayim. So it's a balance, and obviously it's very case by case. I don't think there's like one blanket rule. I generally don't encourage people to cut people out of their life. I don't think it's, you know, unless it's pretty extreme or there's real emotional abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse, etc. I generally try to help our students stay empowered and, you know, really give them, they need skills to learn how to strengthen themselves. But we can't fix people.
So not everything's my job.
Huh?
Not everything's my job.
Yeah, you know, I think it's the famous line from Hillel, right? You can't fix everything. We can't. We actually, as much as we're women and we love to solve every problem, and we can't. And by the way, I want to tell you, that was a very large learning curve for me. I remember the first time I had a student who was suicidal, I knew this was out of my league. It was out of my league. And I asked my local doctor, I said, I need a really good psychologist, not a campus psychologist, because they're just the factory. If you're not suicidal or pregnant, they don't want to deal with you. They can't, whatever. It's just a college campus psychology department. And I called my doctor, and I've since sent about 40 different students in 14 years to this psychologist. I never met her yet, but I saw the way she helps students. She empowers them. I've had to learn my limitations. That is, you know, students with all sorts of things that are ready to be codependent, you know, dependent on me. And I have to also know my boundaries. So I think we all have to, there's a learning curve. It's not simple. And I think for us as women, we want to take everyone's burden on our shoulders, and it's not healthy because we also have to go through life. Hatzlacha, ladies. I know there's a lot here. I know there's a lot we talked about. There's a lot of big, big ideas. But hopefully these ideas that are so big, we can understand their gifts Chassidus gives us. I mean, think of the fact that these ideas that Alter Rebbe has given. Can you imagine right now? Does it not sound like a modern day thing? Lean into the struggle, embrace the struggle. This is part of the human experience. Does it not sound like some psychologist giving a whatever podcast or TED talk? Alter Rebbe told us years ago, validate the emotion, don't suppress it. Okay, the Alter Rebbe didn't speak that way, but Chassidus gives us these tools. Chabad Chassidus is like mind-blowing. The tools we have that is ours, they're our inheritance. Absolutely mind-boggling. So we just gotta tap into them and try to pull them into our lives in a real way. We have gold, which is why this is one of my favorite things to learn together. Because every time I learn and I walk away, I'm like, oh, this is such a good thing to remember. You know, like you need to remember these things, and it's a constant reminder, Ladies, anything else? Anyone else want to jump in and share or add anything? Well, if not, we will say goodnight. It was a pleasure as per usual. I really, really enjoy our Monday nights. And if anyone has any questions to follow up, feel free to WhatsApp me, because there are times that I think I'm making something clear and I'm not making it clear. And I do know that my mind and my mouth can go 100 miles an hour. And so if I need to be slowed down, or if I missed a point, like last week, the question I got at the end was so incredible. So feel free. Okay.
It was really wonderful. Thank you.
Good night, ladies. I enjoy it. I hope you're enjoying as well. This has been a wonderful journey thus far.
Thank you so much, Manya.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night.
You too.
Thank you.